a pillar in the community as president of the Women's Forum, where many years before she had been presented as a debutante, and an active part of Wichita Falls Cattlewomen. In those undertakings, Peggy became very close to many, many wonderful ladies, and she and Rosalie Bearden and Pat Giddings all became so close that they deliberately spent their final years as neighbors. And each in their own way, the sons thrived. Tim in his adulthood had become part of a very loving residential community in Denton. Jeff and Scott both did well in life, though they took different vocations. Jeff in the cattle business, Scott in the financial sector, and they married wonderful women, Sharon and Sherry, became not only daughters-in-law, but daughters in love. And then they gave Peggy the great blessing of grandchildren, the grandsons Justin, Braden, and Connor, the granddaughters Jacqueline and Addison, both of whom you'll hear from in a moment. You know, our first grandchild gives us our final name, and hers was Popea, and I can't even pronounce it, so I'm going to let Jacqueline and Addison tell you why she was named that. Now, Proverbs 17:6 says, grandchildren are the crown of the ages. And they were certainly Pat's crown. And then those grandchildren gave her the incredible gift of grandchildren. Cannon, Carrie, Martin, Lyles, Noah, and Micah. Did I leave anybody out? Did I get them all? Good. Psalm 128 says, happy is everyone who fears the Lord. Your children will be like olive shoots around the table. So many olive shoots around Peggy's table. And she still loved to see the world and loved for those she loved to see the world with her. She went to Russia when it was still the Soviet Union, to Egypt, to Italy, England, France. She took her granddaughter Jacqueline on special trips to Washington, D.C. And while Joe had always been the really effusive one, the big hugger, and she had been more reserved, when she got older, the personal warmth and expressions of affection, all the hugs and embraces multiplied. Peggy was never a willing violet. She could go toe-to-toe with Joe on any number of topics, unrelenting but always loving. She tried her hand at the culinary arts and was wonderfully gifted in the kitchen, even though sometimes her offerings were a little exotic because of all the places she traveled to and all the interesting meals she had eaten while she was there. I have no idea if she ever tried a fusion, say, of Russian and Egyptian cuisine. Tonight we're having a special dish of borscht and falafel souffle, but it wouldn't be surprising if she did. The older she got, the more opinionated she became. And I've been told that there's a particular cable news network that at home was the equivalent of Muzak in the elevator of a high-rise, always on. Peggy loved to talk politics. But politics never alienated her from any of her friends, even the ones who disagreed with her, because to her, people were always more than politics. And she always maintained a deep thirst for knowledge. She started a book club, and in her 60s started teaching her friends the ins and outs of investing. She was interested in so many things. She loved old movies, and her family guesstimated she had about 1,000 DVDs. She had at least 3 address books. She loved reading and finally came to cherish her little Kindle because it required a lot less storage space than all those hundreds of volumes. And she was also into Facebook because she had always had to adapt to technology because of her travel business. She wasn't intimidated by newfangled things. She learned how to use them. And she could be as tough as boot leather. She was in Dallas 7 or 8 years ago visiting Jacqueline. She thought she had heartburn, so she started heading back to Wichita Falls. The pain got so bad, she finally pulled off the highway and headed to the ER at the hospital in Nakona, where she learned it was a heart attack. Another time, Sharon drove her from Austin to Henrietta with a broken arm because she insisted on being seen by her favorite doctor. She had a knee replacement at the age of 81. She took exactly one pain pill. She was loving.